I was thinking about this truth claim that the Buddhists make with their absolute truth or absolute reality that enlightened Buddhas and enlightened beings are able to perceive, and the relative truth that comes with a delusion and the ego, mind, etc. And I always had the feeling or the impression that this absolute truth claiming comes from the spiral dynamics blue mindset or paradigm. If you are not familiar with spiral dynamics and blue, it's the fundamentalist point of view or stage of consciousness development that characterizes the societies which were before our Western and scientific and performance and also exploitation oriented. That's the downside. Societies we have since around 300 or 400 years. And all the spiritual paths we refer to, and the Buddhists and the Indian Advaita, etc., come from, and Buddhist Tantra come from societies which are so-called blue, truth-seeking, good-bad dichotomy, and rather top-down and not very much enhancing social transition from one societal level to the next, rather closed societies, which were perfectly okay then. But anyways, when we take these traditions, and there is a lot of benefit in it to take it traditionally and not make it fit our own purposes and adapt them, but take them as they were as much as possible. And as much as I admire these deep states they developed, and I'm far from that and want to learn from that. That said, I still think that they are, which is part of the game there, because that's from coming with the scientific point of view and the paradigm, that they are not aware of the fundaments they are standing on, the frame, so to speak, the hypothesis and the paradigms that make possible and limit their points of view, and the world they can create and fathom from that, which is true, of course, for each worldview and each paradigm. And we only can see these limits when we move on, and then we, of course, are not aware of our own paradigms. My Huna teacher, Hawaiian shamanism, said that there are so-called beliefs on different levels, and the deepest level of beliefs, under parenthesis, are those we cannot question, because that's the very world we are living in. And I think this absolute truth claim, the very idea of an absolute truth that a human being can be aware of. There may be an absolute truth. I'm not objecting to that, but I don't think that humans, as advanced as they may be, stage-related, can completely encompass. But that's just an assumption that cannot be verified or falsified, of course. And so I think even the most advanced human beings are limited by their pre-assumptions that they are not aware of. That said, I want to refer to the idea I had in a certain meeting and spiritual teaching that I don't want to mention here because it's private. And not only there, but often the teachers refer to the ego as the ego doesn't want to die, the ego does want this or that. And that made me think that when we address the ego as a thing or the ego as an entity, we are reifying the ego because something that doesn't exist from the mindset we are looking at it, which is the mindset that sees the things as processes, then this process can't do or want anything or not want and do anything. But the one who is the doer, whoever the one is, or the one who makes the quantum wave collapse, is seeing himself falsely as the limited ego. However, so this is maybe not such a good idea to address the ego as an entity when we want to move on to a more process-oriented point of view or even experience that the Buddhist experience suggests. This non-existence from its own origin and not solid and not independent existence that the Buddhists found out, and I can agree upon from my inner perspective and exploration. And this led me, but this led me to the idea, and this is also an idea not related to quantum physics in this teaching, but also from my Huna perspective, that we can create different worlds depending on the mindset we use. And this might be a very solid and material one, and this might be an energetic mindset that may be a dreamlike mindset, and it can be even more subtle and more and less dense. So these worlds are defined as being less dense, increasingly dense in a material sense, leading to energetic and above, so to speak, or maybe not above, but existing parallel. And this hierarchical view is not taken there as the more subtle is the more advanced or the more or the better, but rather better is if you can choose what you want and what you want to achieve by taking up that mindset. And this is not arbitrary. This is not like the postmodern critics say anything goes, or you can transmute an apple into a carrot just by saying, I want to see it as a carrot. That's not the point. But according to, from an integral point of view, according to your context, the context you are in, you are choosing, and the goal you want to achieve by. And you are limited, of course, by all kinds of natural laws and physics laws and mental laws and spiritual laws and so to speak, operator manuals you can use. But that would lead too far now. But that led me to the assumption, when we take quantum physics and to its end, or as far as I can take it to its end with my limited understanding, you can even make the world respond in a different way, like being actually more dense, as much as we can verify or falsify it with being the measurement, measurement tool, so to speak, our mind and our state of mind and the degree we developed different and less and more dense measurement tools in our own consciousness. We make the world respond differently and actually be differently then, at least from a phenomenological point of view. And when we take quantum physics to its end, and the measurement tool determines what we measure, then it actually is the way we look at it. And this would make it more easy to correspond, maybe like with materialists, and say, yes, this is true when you look at the world with this mindset, but we can offer different mindsets, and these create alternative truth. And wouldn't it be cool to be able to see and experience different worlds due to our expectations and due to our, or according to our needs? And this I wanted to put into some discussion and wrote it in the questionnaire. And after that, I came across a lecture of Alan Wallace, a spiritual teacher I really like to listen to as well. And it's often so interesting that we bump into the very thing we are thinking about. And he was talking about exactly that, and that with the mindset of a Buddha, you experience the world of a Buddha. And he said he was coming across a physicist, and he said, I don't remember the name, sadly, of the physicist, that according to string theory, you can actually experience different worlds or universes according to, and they are even following different physical laws. And that, so to speak, confirmed this idea that I was thinking about. And it's 11 strings or so. Yes, and that was what I wanted to share and what I wanted to deepen, so that we don't have to fight upon final truth. And in my perspective, this would be an integral view of final or not final truth. And by that, so to speak, to make the marriage between the deepest states, spiritually speaking, or the ultimate states we can conceive and fathom at our current evolutionary development. And this is not meant only physically, but also and even more consciousness related. And the last or the final stage related or growing up. So waking up and growing up, the last stage we were able to achieve. And that would be a cool or nice thing to do, in my opinion. So, and finally, I want to say, probably this is not the last thing we can achieve when we go to, this would be a spiral dynamics yellow, second tier. But when we move on to turquoise, which is not really emerged now, or maybe traces of it, then we could say no one has the final truth, and we only in a swarm consciousness related way we can fathom or put together traces of it. And the totality, because what we don't know is finally who is the one who makes the quantum from the quantum foam, so to speak, from the quantum reality, the quantum field. Who is the one who is the observer then? The ego isn't, and when the final truth isn't, the final truth observer in the state-related point of view. So who is it? And maybe some people think they have got access to it, but one can doubt that. And my opinion is finally, probably we can not grasp that. But maybe this is from an egoic point of view. I don't know that. But maybe this swarm intelligence is led by some higher intelligence, and we are just the channels for that, so to speak. Not that we don't influence it, but in a kind of a co-creation. And we are part of each part of this totality is a co-creator, not totally independent and not totally led by this. But that is leading even further, and maybe that's too much for now. At least I tried and want to put this into the discussion up to yellow and up to second tier and integral, and integrating the last stage of waking up and last state of growing up, or the deepest, to merge at that point. So maybe this makes sense, or this doesn't make sense for anyone. It's just for the fun of it and food for thoughts, hopefully. Thanks for listening.